Hey guys, Shay Brickhouse with Landscaping Unlimited. Earlier I posted a video today and we talked about how we would be coming back to go a little more in depth on some irrigation and how we're digging ditches, but we're also using a lot of education that we've used or that we learned in school. And so therefore I want to go a little bit more in depth and show you the system that we just installed, kind of a little step-by-step across the property, and how we've used mathematics and some planning, and a lot of things went on before we got here to make it where when we got here we could go to work. So if you come on in here, we'll kind of walk into the mechanical room and we'll go over a few things. Mainly it'll be the electrical side of this system and kind of where it starts. So turn the lights on in here, glad they work. But we've got this this low voltage wire here that we've ran that's going to be giving current to every single one of the solenoids that you'll see in a minute, where it will control all the valves. So we've got our irrigation controller and our rain sensor hooked up that we'll have to wire in after the electrician's finished, and it goes to a rain sensor outside so that we can conserve water, because we don't want the irrigation system to be constantly running if it's raining outside and it doesn't need it. So that sensor is crucial, and is actually kind of by law we pretty much have to have that installed. So current will travel down those wires and we'll continue on through our system, causing it all to work as planned. So the clock sends current down that wire, which is ran through some sleeves that was put in before this building was completely constructed, so that we could get that wire in there. We've got a flower bed here, so this particular area will have drip irrigation in it, and the guys have done a great job. We've got sleeves ran in here before any of this work was done, and so we'll have drip tubing coming off of these, and it'll go around and water all these plants so they stay nice and irrigated. Pipes come on down through here. They cross under another sleeve under the sidewalk, which we had to bore underneath, so that's another beautiful challenge that we had. But we've got drip irrigation for some flowers here, drip irrigation on this side, and our electrical wire continues to follow down our trench so that we can continue to have power to the valves that we're getting ready to come up on. So we've got flower bed here, and we've got lawn gonna go on this side. So what we do is we have these separate zones. One zone does just drip, so that valve controls only the areas that have flowers. And then we have another zone that we're going to put a sprinkler head on these black funny pipes, and they'll spray just the grass. And the reason you want those on separate zones is because the grass takes a different amount of water than what the plants do, and they have different requirements. So you don't want to try to irrigate plants and your lawn at the same time, because you'll end up either one will get too much water or one won't get enough, and that's not very efficient. So you set those up on separate zones. Now we left this part of the trench open here to kind of show you what we've done. Now we've got our main water supply that comes in from our backflow preventer from the city. So our main water supply comes in from the city, and it has to come through a backflow preventer. And what this does is it keeps water, so water from the city's coming in this way. And this backflow preventer is really crucial because it keeps from, if somebody ever cut one of these lines and was to plumb water backwards, they couldn't force water into the city's lines, therefore making it, contaminated. So you have to have this backflow preventer installed, or else you're going to end up with contaminated water supply to the city, and that's a big no-no. So we've got our water coming in out of our main line. It's coming down this trench, and it's going to come into our valve boxes here. And we've got, like I talked about a second ago, we've got a drip valve, and we want to, help if I use lift here. We've got a drip valve here, and I made another video where I showed a drip valve and I showed the filter. And your drip valve has this filter in here so that your drip tubing, all your sediment can get caught before it enters your drip tubing. That way you don't have clogged up drip tubing, and your plants actually, you want them to get water, so you don't want those clogged up. The other valves here, these are for your lawn area, and so these valves don't need a filter because the actual sprinkler heads, the orifices are big enough that the little sediment that gets through will be able to come out of that, which we're using potable water from the city of Greenville, so therefore that shouldn't be an issue. If you had a well, you know, that little bit of sand you might get would go right on through those sprinkler heads. So we've got drip valve, does all our flower beds. This one does the flower beds on the entire property. And sometimes you might end up with a pressure issue. So what we've done is we've ran this line in a way to where we can feed it back into itself in multiple spots so that the drip tubing, because it's smaller, doesn't run out of flow. So there's a lot of math that comes into making sure that you've got these pipes stubbed up in the right places. We've got a landscape plan that shows us some of that. Doesn't always match what we do on the job site, so some of that's us doing a design build on site and adjusting that so that it works perfectly. We've also got another set of heads that have to go down here by the street, and because you're good stewards of the land and you want to control erosion, you know, this silt fence has been put up so that the dirt doesn't wash out onto the street. But we actually have a row of heads that have to come down this sidewalk. We're waiting a little bit longer in the process to do this particular zone so that we can get it knocked out, get it graded, get it sodded all before we leave, so we can eliminate the amount of time this silt fence is down. And so we've pre-plumbed up a valve so that we can tie right into that valve and go right to that zone and get that working. But if we come on down some more, I'll kind of walk you through a little bit more of what we've done here. So here's another stub up for our drip, and you know, you saw them on multiple places. So when I talk about tying them and running them back into one another, this pipe is continuously ran around the entire property, and we've got these things stubbed up in multiple places so that we can tie them back into one another so that that 1/2 inch drip tubing doesn't ever lose pressure the further and further you get down the line. And that's pretty important that we do that, because you don't want one plant to have enough water and then one at the end of the flower bed to not have enough. Now, sleeving is very important. Before construction starts, you know, planning is crucial in these things. If you don't get your pipes put in under these driveways before your flat work and your concrete work comes in, or your building and your asphalt, in this case they still haven't laid asphalt yet, which is a blessing for us. But a lot of times we show up on these jobs and asphalt's down. The only thing waiting on is us. And if that's already in place and you don't have sleeves, well, you're not getting these pipes across these driveways or anything of that nature without a lot of work and a boring machine. And in this particular case, you've got this flat work here and you've got a sign here. So to get this pipe through here, it would never work if this wasn't done as a pre-planned thing. So this helps us out running our wires, running our main lines, our drip lines, all that stuff to the other side of the property so that we can continue working. This particular system is 6 zones. So that's 6 separate valves that are electronically controlled from the clock that I showed you in the mechanical room. And here we have another valve box that will control a zone that works the parking lot area over here, and we had enough pressure off of this particular valve to continue to run 3 heads in the front. We've got a main line that runs down and then does another set of heads, and the reason why they're on a separate zone is because there's a flow issue and pressure issues. So we've got to separate that to make sure that the heads are optimally designed to work under certain pressures and certain flows to get you the distance that's required on the tip. And so you look in your book and you figure out your pressure ratings, your volumes, and then you look at which head's required to go where, and you put that in there. A lot of this stuff is specified on the plan. Sometimes what is specified, flow rating and pressure that the plan was designed on, isn't what you get on site. So being able to do a test and see what you have so that you know what part of the plan you can still use and then what part you have to adjust so that the system works like it's supposed to. Because an irrigation system that you install based off the plan but it doesn't work isn't going to be a very good irrigation system, because everything's going to die. You're not going to get the water pressure, or the heads just aren't going to spray. You know, if a head's rated to spray 27 to 35 feet and it only throws 20, and you've got it spaced at 27 to 30 feet, well, it's probably not going to reach, and so you're going to have areas that aren't watered equally. This particular area right here is all going to be sod, and so we've got these little pipes sticking up where we're going to come back and put sprinkler heads in with what's called a sod strip. So they're really unique little tips that go on some pop-ups, and they'll cover this perfectly. So the guys are doing a great job getting all this put in, and we've got our main line running in here. We've got another wire running in here to go to another solenoid. We've got a drip line running in here, and we've got our lateral lines that run to each one of these heads. So a lateral line, if you hear me say that, is every line that is after the valve. So that is, once the solenoid is activated, water flows through the lateral line. A main line is before the valve. That is all the water that is, in this case, always charged, and it will be in that pipe until the valve is open. So they've got the trench open here as they're still plumbing and getting everything done. You guys are doing an awesome job. And they're being extra careful to make sure that when they're putting these pipes together, that they're not dragging them or pushing them into the rocks, so there's no rocks in the pipes. Because if a rock's in the pipe, it's not going to blow itself through. So you don't want any rocks in the pipe. You want it really clean. Good job. They're using prime. They're priming it. Using glue, twist, hold, fitting good and tight, and everything's going to be lasting. So we've got flower bed in this area as well, and so our drip tubing that we saw way on the other side of the property, we've got that plumbed all the way from that drip valve all the way around the property, and we'll end over here in the flower bed to where it can be tied back into itself again, so that it's a continuous loop of water through all of that line. Our last zone is a lawn sprinkler zone where we're going to sod this entire hill for erosion control. And there's a set of heads that go all the way down this parking lot, and that will be to irrigate all this grass so that it stays nice and lush and green, and we can control erosion, because we don't want erosion. So if we get that sod down and we get these roots in, then we've got erosion controlled. There's a ton about irrigation that I could really dive into. Every job's a little different. There's different techniques and different systems that you can install depending on water pressures, you know, how much water you've got available to you, if it's from a well, if it's from the city. All those things play a part, because in this particular case, I know the plan called for a specific parameter for this system to work. And being that I've worked on this street before, I know that those parameters really aren't going to be met. And we're going to do a flow test as soon as they give us a meter, and we'll be able to check that to confirm. But we have plumbed this system in a way that if we had a reduction in flow, we can very easily convert and split zones, because we've ran extra wires. We've ran our plumbing in a way that these things can be done. Bottom line is, we're out here digging ditches, but we're using our brains to do it, and we're not just digging ditches. So landscaping is more about all kinds of things, and it's not just out here digging ditches, mowing grass. We're using our brains, we're using some knowledge, and we're able to calculate a ton of things out here in the field that you can't see on paper or in the office, that you only know from being out here doing it. So we're going to drop another video sometime in the future, real near future, where we're going to dive into like the laws of irrigation and the license required and why it's required, and kind of all the stipulations around that, as well as some videos that go on landscape contractor's license and our commercial pesticide applicator license, because those are three things in our field that really are really valuable for us. And there's actually a lot of knowledge that revolves around those licenses that are important, so that people aren't caught off guard by someone who doesn't know what they're doing. And so we want to dive right into that on another video. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed our irrigation kind of tech talk, little field walk, And stay tuned for everything Landscape Unlimited has got coming your way.